Introduce yourselves first.
Okay, well, we'd like to welcome you all to our very first data meeting. And so the purpose of this is just to give us an overview, of the process that we're going to be working through together. And one of the main reason why we're going to do this is we need to focus on student learning. And we all need to plan together. And we need to look at continuous improvement. Commitment to results. We want to see the results that we're going to get. Shared inquiry. So we're all together going to be going through this process and have the belief that students can achieve. So we do have a video that I want to show you that is a process of data team. We're not going to actually show it because it was quite long, but just kind of gives the process of data team, so you can just kind of see the overview of the whole process. Okay. And so there are several steps, 6 steps to data teaming. First is to collect and chart the data. Step 2, analyze the data and prioritize the needs of the students. Step 3, set, review, and revise a SMART goal. We're going to go more into the detail of all of these. Step 4, select common instructional strategies. We want those best practices in our classrooms, and we're going to be learning from each other. Step 5 is determine results indicator. And then this is all in one data meeting, but then step 6 is at a later time after the teaching has been taking place, where we monitor and continually evaluate our results. Okay, so step 1, we needed to come up with a common standard, which we did, and we're focusing on our 8th grade geometry standard. Understand that a 2-dimensional figure is congruent to another if the second can be obtained by the first by a sequence of rotations, reflections, and translations. Given 2 congruent figures, describe the sequence that exhibits the congruence between them. And so we came up with a common assessment, and it was very important that we did that. So we're looking at the exact same data. And then we're charting it by teacher. This isn't to put anybody on the spot, but it's to make a goal, help us make a goal for each other. And so we have our number of students listed here. We have the number that are already proficient and higher. And this is after we have not done any teaching on this standard yet. This was completely from the pre-assessment, the common assessment. And then we have students here in this column that are close to proficient. And then below, and likely to be proficient. And then these are our students that are struggling. And now we want to note, though, that these aren't equally weighted. I know that Mr. Smith, because of our scheduling, has a lot of students that are receiving special services. And that's why it was really important to have our RSP teachers here, as well as our aides that work with our students so we can all have a common goal. Okay? And then we also charted it. This is nice and visual so you can see the percentage of students that are proficient and higher is the green. Close to proficient is the yellow. Below are likely to increase, and then our red intervention students as well. Okay? And that is the very first step, is just getting that data, charting it, so we can go from there and make a goal for our students.
So I'm going to stop right here, and realizing that there's maybe some of you that don't know all of our names up here. So we're going to introduce ourselves real quick. I'm Katie Diebert.
Elise Kilda.
Andrew Bishop.
Sarah Couch. Megan Jimenez.
Gwen Sutherland.
So getting back to our presentation, step 1 was to gather data and look at your data. Just to gather the data. You're charting it. You are looking at just the results of your pre-assessment. Now in step 2, we get to take that data, and what good is data if we don't analyze it? So now we get to analyze that data and really figure out, so our students that were proficient or close to it, what are they doing that was that we saw as a trend overall? So what are some things that maybe our students are coming in that they already know? And then looking at our students that were below basic or need that intervention, what are some things that we want to make sure that we teach them in order to get them to where they need to be? So you're identifying those strengths, and then you're also making inferences. So What can you infer their students know or have a strong background in based off of the data that you gathered from that pre-assessment? You're not determining teaching strategies from this or ways to get them to learn what you need them to. You're just simply analyzing what they already know or holes that you see that they have just based off of your pre-assessment. This should take about 30% of your meeting time, so a large chunk is dedicated just to figuring out where are your students right now based off of the data from your pre-assessment. One way that you can organize this is in a chart like this. So I'm taking my advanced and proficient students, looking at their strengths, what made them advanced and proficient, what are the things they already know, and then what can I infer that they have some background in. And the same thing for our far below or below basic students. What are some weaknesses? What are some things I can tell that all of them are struggling with or need more help on? And then again, what are some inferences I can make based off of that data? That's step 2, analyzing the data.
Which brings us to step 3. So a SMART goal is set so that you can measure kind of what the students are doing, set a goal for them so that immediate feedback can be given and you can know that a goal is reached. A SMART goal, so it's specific, so it's based off of the group of students, their grade level, the subject, the standard. It's measurable, so you can tell whether or not the students have actually reached that goal. Action-oriented, so that students can make sure that they are doing things to continually get to a certain place or reach a certain goal. And realistic, so realistic based off of not only are students capable of reaching this goal if it's set too high or even if it's set too low, should they surpass that goal, or it's based off of is it specific and is it relevant to what the subject is. And time-bound or time-oriented, so you can make sure that they reach it in a timely manner. These are short-term goals, and without short-term goals, things can be unorganized and improvements can't always be reached, and you can't be sure that students are getting to where they're actually supposed to be. Also, it's not actually for proficiency, for all students to reach proficiency, but to continually make sure that they're always improving.
All right, step 4, determining instructional strategies. This strategy should take about 30% of the meeting time. It actually has a direct correlation to step 2, which is analyzing your data, which also takes about 30% of your meeting time. By analyzing that data, you should, with your group, identify strategies, select strategies that are going to best help the students reach your goals that you're going to set a little bit later. Along with that, you want to make sure collaboratively you and your teacher group share the best strategies based on research. Okay, don't just throw darts at a board, take a shot. It needs to be research-based and it needs to be supported with what you're doing. Example of this, you kind of see with this organizer right here, we have our strategies, but you can see they have a direct effect on a lot of things in the classroom, including learning environment, the frequency, the duration of the time you want to do it. Also materials you need as a teacher professional and your students, and then how does this affect the assignments and assessments, okay? What will students be required to use in the strategy you picked, okay? And so it's just a good chart that maybe, especially any subject matter you are in, that you could use for that.
Okay, so step 5, you've looked at your data, you have seen where the holes and gaps are, you've seen where the students need to improve, you have created a plan and you've implemented some strategies. Now you need to actually see if the strategies are being implemented correctly and make any course corrections. So you're going to start determining results indicators. 30% of your meeting time should be spent on this step, so it's a pretty important one. We don't want teachers going back to their classrooms and having this plan and then setting the plan down in a corner and never looking at it again, or not knowing how to implement something and not being monitored and given help if they need it. So that's what this step is all about. This is our standard right here. Your results indicator should be written in if-then form. So if this happens, then this is going to happen. And that's what this is. If students are doing what we want them to do, then what will that look like? And that's what a results indicator should say. And then some of these here, these are just some of the strategies that we had decided on that we would use for this. And there's all kinds of different ways to monitor your results, but one of the best ways is by just making a simple chart and deciding what is it going to look like when these things are happening. So in a classroom, you basically have two players. You have teachers and you have students. What are the students going to be doing, and what are the teachers going to be doing to make this happen? And these are just some of the strategies that we had listed on our last graphic. This is what we would expect to see from the teachers if they were employing this strategy. This is what we would expect to see from the students if they were employing the strategy. This is our time frame for these strategies, and then those would be our goals over there of what we want to see happening and improving for our students. And then as you go through this, if you notice that it's working, fantastic. If you notice that it's not working, then you can make corrections. You do not have to wait all the way until the end of your time frame to make those corrections. Which brings us to step 6.
Okay, so step 6 is to monitor and evaluate your results. So this is continuous. This is something that you're doing all the time. When you're doing this, you're going to go back and make sure that as you're teaching, you're following what the team agreed to. And if you're not, then why is it that it didn't go the way as planned? It also will, sorry. Oh, it's wrong. Okay, so when the goal is, when you look at it and when you sit down and you get to the step and you see that the goals are met, then you shift your focus as to what will be the next steps that you need to look at for your data to move on. Some of the things here, it's like, can you go to the next slide? So this is something that you would use in order to, it's kind of like a checkoff list to hold yourself accountable. So you look at this to see what it is. And like I said before, if you're not implementing it the way that the team had advised you to, then you're going to want to look and see, well, okay, why did that happen? And that's going to obviously sway the results of your data that you are looking for. This also will help us to point out strengths and weaknesses within the process that you had set up to reach your goal. And it's, like I said again, it's just basically reflecting back on what you did as a data team, and again, it's a self-check to make sure you're following each step of the way the team planned. That's it. Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, sorry, I'm totally hoarding it.